I have been getting a lot of questions about how to center the view on your screen. And this is the kitchen that we have been working on lately. And one of the things that we can do to make sure that our view of the objects that we drew is centered is to type zoom, enter, and then you can see I'm just going to move this a little bit above, and then you can see that we have a lot of options here. So I'm just going to click on zoom extents here, or I can type E and hit enter on the keyboard. Now immediately this is going to zoom the drawing, okay, or center all of the objects that you drew on your screen. Now notice one thing here is that because we have those elements that are basically the elevation, the front elevation of the kitchen, this actually enabled us to view all of the elements. So zoom extents will show the extents of everything that you drew. Okay, so just want to make sure that you understand this because we're going to talk about drawing limits as well, and the difference between drawing limits and zoom extent, because basically the extent of my drawing here, okay, is the fact that I have the elevation below the floor plan of the kitchen, or the top view of the kitchen. So I can also, one of the things I can do, I'm just going to move this a little bit up, that if I have a middle mouse wheel, this is going to enable me to zoom in and zoom out. Okay, so the middle mouse wheel, I can start zooming in and zoom out. But sometimes you're going to find that your object are very small and they are lost in the screen. And when this happens, I'm just going to type zoom, enter, and then E for extents and enter. And everything that I drew, all the objects that I drew on the screen will be visible. And that's a very important tool to make you understand, or to make you visualize your screen, because the screen in AutoCAD is infinite. And there, if you started to draw something as small as your exercises, like 5" by 5", and you find that this is very small in comparison to the screen, this is because you're not actually zooming or extending the view to the extension, or to the limits of your screen. The second thing that I want to talk about is drawing limits. Now, drawing limits, as you can see here, we did this, we centered the drawing, or we enabled the drawing or the floor plan or the top view of the kitchen to be exactly aligned with the X and Y axes. And we managed to do this with, and we also extended the grid only to be located within the drawing limits that we specified. At any given moment, we can change our drawing limits. For example, right now, I have that elevation here below, and this is going to be the case that you might encounter, is that you might want to include the extents of the drawings to also include the elevation. So I'm going to type limits and enter. Okay, now we're going to accept the 0, 0. And let's say that I'm going to put any other number than the numbers. So I'm just going to accept this. And the numbers that I have right now are the numbers, just concluding or including the floor plan or the top view of the kitchen, which are 3810 and 1830. What I want this to be bigger. If I want this to be bigger, let's say, for example, I want this to be 10,000 by 10,000 millimeters, and I press enter, you can see how big that becomes, how big that canvas becomes. All right. So I might not, maybe I will actually try to locate this. If I want to locate the this, or I want to move this into the middle of the screen here, I can do that. I can highlight this. I can click on move. I'm going to click on all of the objects, Okay, I know that you haven't started your elevation, but I'm just showing you. We're going to talk about elevation later. But if you want to extend this later, and I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to zoom in with the middle mouse wheel. I'm going to click on one of the points. So maybe I need to turn the endpoint, and I'm going to turn off the midpoint and perpendicular for now. And I'm going to select this as my corner point, and I'm going to start. Now notice, because I still have ortho locked, I can only move this way or this way. And I need a little bit of freedom. So I might click here, all right? And then I'm going to repeat the move command. So I'm going to right click and repeat move. And I'm going to select all of this. Again, you might not have the elevation yet, but this is for the future, because you're going to have 4 or 2 elevations that you want to center with a bigger drawing limit space. So after selecting the objects, I'm going to click enter, and I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to specify this as the base point or corner point, and then I'm going to move it, okay, almost to the middle of my drawing limits. Something like that. So this might be something that you will do in the future during this term, because you're definitely going to have to work with a bigger drawing limits if you're gonna have a kitchen that you have 4 or 3 or 2 elevations. So you definitely need bigger space. Now, another question I got today was, how do we extend the grid just to cover the drawing limits area that we specified? Now, if I go here, this is the grid. Okay, if I turn it off, it's not going to make that much difference for you to have the grid on or off. We just set the limits just to know the limits of our drawing. And this is going to help you even with the zoom command and with the zoom extents. So I'm going to click on the grid again and right click. And when I right click, there's something called grid settings. If you're if you have display in the grid behavior section, if you have display grid beyond limits, if I did that and click OK, the grid is going to cover the whole screen. But if I click here again and go to grid settings, if I want to display grid beyond limits, I'm just going to uncheck this and then click OK. And the grid is going to constrain itself, or the grid spacing is going to constrain itself only to the drawing limits that we specified.